Okay, guys, assalamu alaikum. Uh, so before we get started with this week's session, just a quick reminder that this upcoming Saturday at 1:30 at the Diyanet Center of America, we are having our Living the Quran series session with Dr. Mina. So this our topic will be what is tasbih. So for those who are local or who are close enough, we would love to see you guys if you can trek or carpool. If you're interested and you're not sure if there's anyone nearby, you can also message our WhatsApp group and we can maybe help arrange some um, ways for you to get here. So usually we do a recording and we upload it. So for those who can't make it or who want to share it afterwards, we'll make that available. Um, okay. So if you guys have any questions, please let us know. And obviously, this is for anyone who hasn't been there before. It is a big mosque slash cultural center. So if you're, trekking, you can come out earlier in the morning, spend some time in the mosque. There's a library, there's a restaurant, so you can kind of make a day trip out of it. And um, obviously our session will be the cherry on top, inshallah. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, let us know. And the information for this is online and is on our Instagram, and we also sent it out with the newsletter. Okay. So we're gonna continue reading from the 26th word. This is our 7th session, I believe. And our topic is divine determining, Qadar. So we have been reading and talking about this topic. And within this treatise, which is written by Imam Nursi, uh, there were two main topics that we read up till now. And today we're going to start the third topic. So before we start there, I won't do another summary just because I keep doing this every week and I think everyone's kind of caught up at this point. Um, but I will say the one thing that, I contemplated a bit more this week was from what we read last halakha was the relation that we have with this free will. And some of the things that keep coming up as we tackle the subject from different perspectives. So, one thing that we talked about last week was how to conceptualize the point about taking responsibility. And we, had a metaphor here, and then we gave another example. Isra gave another example about asking your friend to take you to an airport or taking a taxi to an airport. And um, if you tell them to take you to Dulles Airport and they take you there, but actually your flight was out of JFK, you can't really get mad at your Uber or your friend for taking you to Dulles because that's where you told them to take you. So this is kind of how we're operating in the world. We're not creating anything, but we are making decisions, we are making choices, and Allah is creating the result of those choices. So there is a part that I'm playing in this, but that is not creation. So this was kind of our focus last week. Um, yeah, I'll stop there. I know Sarah, you were a little sick last week, so I want to ask if you want to share anything. And if not, if anyone else would like to share, and then we'll get started, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Nursi. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Alhamdulillah, I see
Walaikum
all of
salam.
our friends here. Assalamu alaikum to Anne. Special shout out from our East Coast side, New York, New Jersey, on the call. Alhamdulillah. So I'm still catching up from last week's halaqah, and I actually rewinded it and I'm listening to it. I think this is the third time, and just really pausing with the language that Dr. Yamina used in her reflection because, and I urge everybody, I posted it in our WhatsApp, um, to go back from 35 to 40 minutes and just really take notes. Especially for me, the topic of divine determining and Qadar and free will is
Sarah, is it possible for you to come any closer to your mic?
yeah. So is this better?
Yes, much better.
Alhamdulillah. So I'm saying that I just want to touch on some points that I found extremely just profound and worthy of rewatching and taking notes and reflecting on. So Dr. Yamina repeats this often from practice. And it's important for us, speaking to myself first and foremost, to renew our intention to practice what we're learning, because that's what gives receiving nur an opportunity to become transformational. It has to be an individual commitment to practice, and taking notes is an extremely important part of that. So for me, I'll type out some notes and I'll put in caps and bold and underline the things that I really want to emphasize. And I just want everyone to benefit from the depth of what she shared, alhamdulillah, from her practice. We're reading Imam Nursi's practice, which changed his life, um, and turned something extremely what we would call dark and calamitous, to say the least, into light and peace and contentment and bliss. And so when Dr. Yamina then, as a student of his, of his, rahimahullah, rahmatan wasi'ah, practice, then when we receive her reflections on her practice, I think it's just something that we need to all take very seriously as we seek, as students, to devote to the Quranic practice of living. Um, and so, with that being said, Dr. Yamina often reminds us that every day we have to intentionally renew our commitment to live consciously. And this is language that people are using generally right now. I think, like, be intentional, live intentionally, live consciously, and sort of using it mainstream. But when the Quran defines what that is, it's so bizarrely different than the mainstream way of looking at it. Dr. Yamina said in this our last week, which again, I highly recommend everybody to go back and listen to again and take notes. The minimum consciousness of not a Muslim, but a believer, someone who is devoted to cultivating Iman, is awareness of our actions, being aware that in every single moment, and this never gets old for me. I've been studying this for over a decade, and it's absolutely profound every time. We are always asking. We simply want to stand up, and millions of processes inside of our body, the microcosm, and in the universe are perfectly set in place to permit that desire to come into fruition. We want to stand, and this infinite divine will says, be in the microcosm and the macrocosm with perfect alignment in such a way that we stand. and take steps and speak. We want to say something, and infinite processes in the microcosm of the body and in the universe are subjected and subdued by infinite power and a will of a being that is infinite and beyond for you. If we were to notice that moment by moment, this infinite power, this be by this infinite being is constantly taking place on us, she said we would be so overwhelmed, we would do nothing else but kharru sujadan. We would just be in prostration, in awe, overwhelmed. Now, we know that moment to moment, how many of us can actually commit to living in that way as we're learning, but at least take notice of how serious this is as a responsibility, as our main profession, as we were speaking about in the past, that this is who we were meant to be. This is why the whole universe was made, to guide you to see that you're just the asker, the abd, and there is a being, the Rabb, the sustainer, that is ordering the microcosm and the macrocosm intricately and just with incredible complexity, yet with perfect ease of the simple command be. She said that the non-believer may have an excuse to live in ghafla, to be heedless, but the one who claims to be a believer, for me, that was like, whoa, rewind, bold. How are you even making ibadah, prayer consciously if you're not even aware? And it's the verbatim, my notes, and it struck me like a heavy load of istighfar. Because if we're not talking about this constant reminder to come back and like I have to again, inshallah, write it somewhere, renew the commitment daily to be aware of me as the asker and the sustainer doing everything. Because if I'm aware of how often my prayer is answered, it's like, I want to lift my arm. Yes, be like access granted. Access, you want to see? Granted. You want to talk? Granted. You're thirsty? Granted. The water is granted and the quenching is granted. Um, and so nonstop, all day, it's this constant green light of rahmah, of just care and inaya and love, this all of these beautiful qualities that unfortunately, astaghfirullah, we're not taught how to nurture this awareness. And it's time. It's time for us to vote. The time is now, and we can just start in every new moment now. And I loved Dr. Isra's example of the taxi. And so if we're not consciously renewing that intention daily, then the inner chaotic, untrained voice um, of just constant flux. Um, there was another scholar that used a word for it that really struck with me, that we're easily frazzled, like easily hurried. And so there's this other um, base instinct that if it's not consciously told, like Assalamu alaikum, good morning, we are going to practice being kind, then it's going to take us on its own ride. Like this whole taxi example was saying, it's going to take us on this whole ride of go do this, go do, and none of it is living intentionally unless we stop and renew. So that was a big reminder for me, and I wanted to just emphasize that. Sorry. Um, Also, there's this really big, subtle, like victimized mentality creeping into the conversations happening with everything going on in Gaza. What's going to happen in 40 days, in 10 days? Is it going to be? And there's this panic that I'm noticing, and I notice it in my own self, and just in even aside from that, in our worldly affairs, The tomorrow we don't know, the next day we don't know. And so Dr. Yamina was offering this very grounding, and this is a word used for receiving Nur's teachings, because the chaotic voice can be so like the wind pulling us in every which way, and so quickly if we don't have a grounded intention to come back to with every prayer, every morning, then she was saying like we can realize that moment to moment if we realize who we are, this ubudiyah, this sense of our neediness and that we're always in a state of asking, we would realize that we're far from the victim and we're actually very honored special guests in this world. And that wouldn't be possible unless we were doing the daily work. And if you're doing the daily work, then you would realize that almost all of your constant prayers, that's the I want to see, I see. I want to stand, I'm given. I want to eat the food and the ease, given, 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 given. So she says, if we're in that state of nurturing that daily, then we realize that it's more than trust. Like you have a relationship with a being that is giving. And so when it comes to something that I didn't get, say I pray for something and it didn't yet happen, then she was saying, and this was very peaceful for me. This was very nice to hear. If that particular prayer is not accepted, then perhaps my desire for that wasn't good for me. So I surrender. And there's the word, I surrender, that I don't know. And I think this is a big aspect of Qadar. I don't know. And we have to be so at peace with I don't know. It can't be like, I don't know. Like even that, like, I don't know why. I don't know. No. Okay. I surrender, I accept and make peace with. I was telling somebody else, like I'll never forget one of my first retreats with Dr. Yamina. Islam was defined as accepting and making peace with in the here and now. And for me, it was so easy. It was like, oh, this is so helpful to come back to the here and now, or forget about all the times you just messed up, yesterday, the day before, that, whatever. Here and now, accept and make peace with the fact that I really don't know. I don't have that knowledge. I don't know. And I don't know if it's actually good for me or not. I don't know what the infinite wisdom would be. There's just, and I think it's easy to come back to being reminded that just make peace, accept and make peace with the fact that we don't know. Um, she said that I may think that it's good. I ask God. If it's good, he gives it. If not, then he'll answer. Either won't give me that and give me something else, but there's always an answer. So this being is always answering me. I think a lot of times the frustration is like, but why isn't he answering me? Like, why isn't this prayer not being answered? But she was like, if you're paying attention, it is being answered. I think it's just a matter of how we tune into the way, just the relationship between how we're asking and how we're being answered moment to moment. And she said, if we don't see it that way, it's because we're stuck in the desire for X and this worldly life. And then we become neglectful, the people of the heedless. So that's what we don't want. Um, and I don't want to take too much time, but I have plenty more things bolded and underlined. So I do want to bring everybody back. And we'll just end on the note that we want to constantly remember that our limited free choice, the way that Dr. Yamina explained it last week, we should be in a state of conscious prayer, realizing that we're always in a state of prayer. Um, and which for me also includes gratitude, the tasbih, joining the glorification of God, or tawbah and istighfar, like just and she said that constantly, constantly, constantly. The Quran guides us to constantly, constantly, constantly be in a state of istighfar. And if we see everything that I just said, like how rarely for myself I do this, then it's a blessing that we have access to istighfar to come back to like a quick detour back to the straight path. Inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I think those are also really good points to utilize the group chat for. So as you guys are contemplating the topics that we're talking about in Halakha, you can share these reflections. So, one thing that I'm taking away from our last 2 weeks has been, okay, how can I make a sustainable, consistent practice of slowing down in my life? What does this mean? How can I, um, like for me, a big concern is I can start doing something, but it seems like I have a hard time making it into a habit or like making sure it sticks around. Um, especially with us approaching Ramadan, I'm always like, oh, I'm gonna start doing these, and I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life, and then tapers off. So, that's something that I am thinking about, especially like we've been talking about, okay, how can I cultivate this intentional living, mindful living, and that has to come from slowing down because otherwise, like Sarah said, we are frazzled and hurried. And I remember one of the halakas that Dr. Ali does for those who join those. He was saying, hurrying and being hurried or in this like state of unnecessary urgency um, is like a habit that comes from the devil. Um, so there, and I think the connection there was anything that takes you out of being intentional in the moment is going to um, make you step into heedlessness or ghafla. Um, and that's another thing that we talked about, I think, 2 weeks ago, where every moment it's an either or choice, It's either you are aware and intentional or you're not. So there's no middle ground. So the more moments we have where we are being intentional and aware, like actually I'm making shahada right now. I'm making I'm witnessing or bearing witness to the creation and how it is speaking to me and the signs around me. All of those are what's kind of like stacking up for me to actually live according to my purpose. So, inshallah, we can encourage each other in that journey. I think before I start the third topic, I just want to read the in short again as a summary of the second topic. Because like Sarah was saying, we do have just a little summary of that istighfar and gratitude bit here. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. This is the summary of the second topic. In short, O man, you have a will known as the power of choice, which is extremely weak, but whose hand in evil acts and destruction is extremely long, and in good deeds is extremely short. Give one of the hands of that will of yours to supplication, so that it may reach paradise, a fruit of the chain of good deeds, and stretch to eternal happiness. And give its other hand to the seeking of forgiveness, so that it may be short for evil deeds, and will not reach the Zakkum tree of hell, which is one fruit of the accursed tree. That is, just as supplication and reliance on God greatly strengthen the inclination to do good, so repentance and the seeking of forgiveness cut the inclination to do evil, putting an end to its transgressions. Okay. So here, supplication, reliance on God. I believe this is dua and tawakkul, and then repentance and seeking of forgiveness is tawbah, istighfar. Um, and we can kind of see how consistent practice of these things with the intention, with the awareness, that's going to kind of change um, our default settings, right? And um, so I want my default setting to be more inclined to do good, less inclined to do evil. And to get there, this is what I need to do, inshallah. Okay, before I start reading the third topic, would anyone else like to share anything or pose any questions?
It's a very small thing. I wanted to add that inclination is not just in the sense of having a desire towards, let's say, inclination to do evil also includes our capacity for evil, because sometimes you don't just intend, and without intending, without being unaware, I could be doing so much evil. Just so that side, that potential is real, because destruction is easy. You just say one sentence and break somebody's heart. You withhold some, kindness, and then maybe ruin somebody's day. There's so many ways in which I can do evil, or ask for evil, if you will, and end up with those evil results. So I am genuinely kind of asking forgiveness and seeking refuge from my own potential of evil, because as we discussed before a couple times, destruction is easy, and I can be totally responsible for messing a lot of things with a little bit of agency. So when we make istighfar, we're also asking not only to bring down our intention to do evil, inclination to do evil, but also just that potential, because it's easy to destroy. I'm afraid of doing that, and I'm really seeking refuge from that. And it also, as I'm talking now, it also makes more sense that in the khutbahs on Fridays, one of the prayers that they classically, I mean traditionally, they always say is, we seek refuge from the evil of our own souls. And that's real, not because we have this kind of constantly evil thoughts inside, not necessarily, but the potential to destroy. It doesn't require much. You can burn a building. We discussed this at length before, but I wanted to remind that to myself as well. And similarly, you might want to do good things. It's not like we don't want to do good things, but there's so many things have to come together for that good thing to happen. And then when we turn that into an intentional prayer, I take my little steps, but I am enhancing that with prayer and tawakkul, trusting in God. I don't know how this is going to work out. I'm going to start to do my little bit, and I'm praying for all the other, as Sarah said, micro and macro level things that are required for that beautiful thing to come into being and to be of benefit or to be of use. Let the creator take care of all of that. I trust in that, in him. And so really at the heart of it all is connecting with our creator, asking for good to flourish and making us as a means to it, even though we have no power whatsoever to create. And then also asking for forgiveness and seeking refuge from the potential of destruction.
Thank you, Isabella. Dr. Amina, would you like to add anything before we start the third topic?
Assalamu alaikum. I just thought Isra's reminder and emphasis is important to realize, because if we realize the importance of what we do and what we don't do, then maybe we'll be more motivated, inshallah. Because sometimes we may, as Isra said at the beginning, be indirectly participating in evil, not necessarily by doing something evil, but it could be by withholding a little good. And it reminded me when Isra was sharing of part of story. I don't remember the story. I read it a long time ago, but there was a small part that stuck in my mind, and it was about this teenager who had a very dysfunctional family life. And one day he decided, he was like 13, 14, he decided to commit suicide. Actually, he had that idea before, and so he would go through a building and he would always look at, is it high enough so that he could end his life. And one day he decided that this is it. He was going there. And on the way, someone in his class, he later realized, a classmate who didn't know him well, recognized that he is from his class. And he met him when he was going there. And this one was very distracted. The teenager was distracted. So he had, I think maybe he was coming back from school or something. So his school books, something fell, and the other boy, the classmate, helped him with his things and greeted him and said, would you like to come to my home to play? And so he went with his friend to play. And many years later, when they were adults, he meets the friend again and he tells him, do you know that you saved my life? And the classmate was unaware what happened. He said, that day, if you had not invited me, I would have done something. So you see that little kindness that this child showed, unbeknown to him, had saved someone's whole life. So that's why we can't say, but this is like a drop in the ocean. That's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is when the urge, the nudge, the inspiration comes, act on it. Action, because Iman is action. So living in that presence of God. So when you feel like greeting, smiling, asking someone, doing, even if it seems a very little action, take it. Bismillah, inshallah, in the name of God, take it. If it's good, there is no small or big. It's all good, inshallah.
Okay, I love that. Iman is action. Yeah, well, I think it's noteworthy that we've been talking about this, the act of doing for the last couple of months, really, since our study on angels. Because nowadays we live very passively. So I like, the emphasis that I'm getting from the halakha, which is every moment of my life is an opportunity for me to bear witness, number one. And two, I am like by just setting the intention or just by tuning in to the messages that Allah is always sending me and is communicating with me, I'm already like attuned to this, attuned to this. What's it called? I don't know, there's a frequency, let's say. And when he creates these little pockets of potential goodness for me, then I can just take the opportunity. So I like that. Okay, this is what I should seek then. every day. But not in like a, I don't know, not in like a cliche way, like just do a little random act of kindness every day. No, it's intentional. And I'm looking at it from this perspective that I am taking responsibility for my choices, and they are a representation or manifestation of what I believe. So my Iman in action, I guess. Okay, so let's start reading the third topic, and okay, we'll read as much of the introduction as we can. So, Bismillah. Third topic, belief in divine determining is one of the pillars of belief. That is, the belief that everything is determined by Almighty God. The certain proofs for divine determining are so numerous, they cannot be calculated. We shall show, in an introduction, simply and clearly, how strong and broad is this pillar of belief. Introduction. Numerous verses of the Qur'an, like, nor anything fresh or dry green or withered, but is inscribed in a clear book, state clearly that before it comes into existence and after it passes from existence, everything is written. Through its creational signs, like the order, balance, regularity, adornment, differentiation, and the giving of form, the verses, the signs of the mighty Qur'an, inspired by divine power and called the universe, confirm these statements of the Qur'an. Indeed, the well-ordered missives and finely balanced verses of the Book of the Universe testify that everything is written. The indication that everything is determined and written before it comes into existence are all beginnings, seeds, measured proportions, and forms. Each of these testifies to this. For seeds and grains are subtle containers appearing from the workbench of B, kun, and it is in each of which is deposited a tiny index traced by divine determining. Divine power employs minute particles according to the plan of divine determining and constructs the mighty miracles of power on the seeds. That is to say, everything that will happen to the tree is as though inscribed in its seed. For in regard to their substance, seeds are simple and similar to one another. Materially, they're nothing. Maybe I should stop there. What do you guys think? Should I keep reading? Then we could maybe read another paragraph. Okay, I think I'll read one more paragraph and then I'll come back to the beginning. Furthermore, the well-measured proportions of everything clearly show divine determining. Yes, whatever living creature is considered, it is as though its form and measure emerged from a wisely and skillfully wrought mold. For it to receive such a measure, form, and shape, either there has to be a truly wondrous and infinitely intricate physical mold, or else pre-eternal power cuts out the form and shape according to a well-proportioned, immaterial mold that exists in knowledge and comes from divine determining and clothes it in it. For example, look carefully at this tree or that animal. You will see that the particles, which are lifeless, deaf, blind, unconscious, and similar to one another, are in motion in its growth and development. In some of the being's intricate extremities, the particles halt, as though seeing, knowing, and recognizing the place of fruits and benefits. Then, in another place, they change their direction as though following some important aim. That means they're in motion in accordance with the immaterial measured proportions of the tree or the animal, which come from divine determining, and are governed by those proportions. Okay, so let's go back here. Yeah, woe is correct, I think. One thing I love about reading Imam Nursi is his descriptions of things that are so commonplace, or even things that we think we know the descriptions of or explanations for. So in various parts of the Risale-i, he has these really extensive descriptions for what a human being is, what dua is, what a prophet is, and they're very like universal. So I feel like the example he gave here in the beginning of the introduction was one of those. So here, numerous verses of the Quran, like nor anything fresh or dry, green or withered, but is inscribed in a clear book, state clearly that before it comes into existence and after it passes from existence, everything is written. So this is this is our focus. Okay, Israbla just sent the full ayah here in the chat, so I'll just read it. Would anyone like to read the Arabic?
Sure. أعوذ بالله. وعنده مفاتح الغيب لا يعلمها إلا هو ويعلم ما في البر والبحر وما تسقط من ورقة إلا يعلمها ولا حبة في ظلمات الأرض ولا رطب ولا يابس إلا في كتاب مبين.
Jazakallah. He has the keys to the unseen. No one knows them but him. He knows all that is in the land and sea. No leaf falls without his knowledge, nor is there a single grain in the darkness of the earth, or anything, fresh or withered, that is not written in a clear record. So this section is coming from this ayah. Okay. Oops. Okay, so through its creational signs, like the order, balance, regularity, adornment, differentiation, and the giving of form, the verses, the signs of the mighty Qur'an, inscribed by divine power and called the universe, confirm these statements of the Quran. Okay, so here's a very compact description of the universe. Through its creational signs, like the order, balance, regularity, adornment, differentiation, and the giving of form. The verses, the signs of the mighty Quran, inscribed by divine power and called the universe, confirm these statements of the Quran. Okay, so this is something that we talked extensively about during our sessions on angels. We're always reading the Quran as God's word and the book of the universe side by side. So here, as we're doing our reading on divine determining, what I'm reading in the Quran about what is in God's knowledge, I can look at the universe that is being created around me and confirm the statements of the Quran based on what I'm witnessing in the universe here and now. Okay, so this is going to be our methodology, inshallah. Okay. Indeed, the well-ordered missives and finely balanced verses of the Book of the Universe testify that everything is written. The indication that everything is determined and written before it comes into existence are all beginnings, seeds, measured proportions, and forms. Each of these testifies to this. So when I'm looking at this Book of the Universe and I'm reading the verse in the Quran, I will be able to match what the Word of God says, the ayah in the book, literally, and the ayah in creation should match. So my job here is to look at the claim in the physical book and then look at the universe and see if that claim can be verified, right? So how Imam Nursi is sketching this out is the indication that everything is determined and written before it comes into existence are all beginnings, seeds, measured proportions, and forms. So the ayah that we're looking at, the verse, and the claim about divine determining is everything is determined and written before it comes into existence and after it passes away from existence. So this is the statement. And he's saying, okay, when you look at the world around you, and if you look at beginnings or seeds or measured proportions and forms, all of those things in the world that you are living in are testifying to this truth, right? So then we're going to get this example of how the seed is verifying this claim. Okay, Isra Abla sent the Arabic of the words we're seeing here. So creational signs are ayat takwiniya in the mighty Quran of the universe, which in the Risale-i is called the Quran Kabir, of divine power, which is Qadar, which we have been talking about for many sessions. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. Takwiniya is coming from the same root as kun, right? Being.
Kun, kaun in Arabic, the universe is called al-kaun, and kun is also from the same root, yes.
Okay.
And yatakawwan, something is becoming, like being constituted, or you say something yatakawwan min, if you will use it that way, it consists of, and takween is something becoming.
And Ziba just wrote kainat,
Yes,
the same
yes, from the same,
root.
yes.
Nice. Oh, I love Arabic. It's amazing. Okay. So let's read this. Let's read to the end of the paragraph and then we'll stop there. For seeds and grains, okay, so again, the concept, the method is this. We're going to look at the verse in the Quran, then we're going to look at the big Quran, which is the universe, and we're going to see if the claim in the book the Quran as a book matches the book of the universe. Okay? This is the main methodology. So, for seeds and grains are subtle containers appearing from the workbench of B. Love this imagery here. And it is in each of which is deposited a tiny index traced by divine determining. Okay, so seeds and grains are subtle containers coming from the workbench of Kun, B, and it is in each of which is deposited a tiny index traced by divine determining. Divine power employs minute particles according to the plan of divine determining and constructs the mighty miracles of power on the seeds. That is to say, everything that will happen to the tree is as though inscribed in its seed. For in regard to their substance, seeds are simple and similar to one another. Materially, they are nothing. Okay, so our claim again was everything that comes into existence and will go out of existence is written, right? That's what we said. It is in divine, it's divinely determined, or it is known. And here's an example that you can confirm in your own life. When you have a seed in your hand or a grain, that seed contains a plan that tells you what will happen as that seed grows into a tree. So this is a parallel, or like the ayah that we're reading in action. Is the way I'm understanding it anyway. Okay, so I'll stop there and let's take some reflections on this first part.
I mean, the seed is a good example, and it's easy for us to understand because when we look at a seed, we know this is an apricot seed, this is whatever the seed of is. Even if I don't know, it is recognizable, and we can predict, let's say, I know what kind of plant and fruit will come out of this seed. So the fact that I can know, it means it is measured and it is muqaddar. In qaddara, you will find in the English translation, sometimes it's translated as determine, sometimes as measure. It's translated differently because, again, in Arabic, it's from qadr. Qadr and is a measure, and miqdar also is a certain quantity. It doesn't become everything. It follows certain limits, certain forms, certain. And there is the measuring included in qaddara. So in that taqdir, qaddara taqdir, we know that it's not going to grow randomly. It's following a plan. So it is written. We can witness that truly it's always the same. This kind of seed grows into this kind, even in the same, like tomatoes, but you will know that this is this kind of tomato, this is this kind of tomato. And what's nice also is, first, we know that it is planned and written. It is measured. It's not happening haphazardly. It is under control. It's just we take it for granted and we don't pause and marvel at the fact that everything is following step steps and a very well written plan. And the second that always I find fascinating as well is that, for instance, a seed will grow, another seed won't grow. A seed will grow in the tree, and one tree will grow big, and the other one will be cut, and one will end up in a stove, and the other one will end up, will live more than the other, and one will have whatever. That's the different qadar. Imam Nursi rahimahullah explains these two kind of qadar. One is the one that is follows the steps that we can, I will say predict, but it's not 100%. But let's say roughly we can predict this is this kind of tree, this kind of plant, and there is another kind of qadar that we can't say anything about it. We don't know what will happen to that tree. Where it will end up, who will come and cut it or sit there, or what birds will live in it, but the first one is the measure for the second one, because the first one we can witness it and we can have certainty that everything is written and it is part of divine knowledge. Nothing exists in vain. Everything is given existence with knowledge, with power, with wisdom, with all the names of God. So then, with this certainty of the part, the tiny part that I can interact with, experience, and witness, I can make now shahada for the part that I have no idea about. I can have tawakkul, I can trust and surrender to the divine will for the other part, because the one who is creating with wisdom, with measure, with power. He is in control over everything. So now I can say, Alhamdulillah, I can let go and trust and truly surrender to the parts, not only the tree, but our life. We see a child will grow into an adult, but what kind of adult, what will happen to it, that is totally unknown to us. But it doesn't overwhelm us. We don't live in fear of the future, because now we can trust and surrender to the divine will, because everything is under control. Everything is, nothing is happening haphazardly.
I guess I'm just in listening mode. There's nothing I really want to say other than you know, the embryo. So like all of the different creations, and especially because my little friend likes to watch now, all is so intrigued by the different types of species of the different animal. And so looking at just like the seed, every single different species of different animal in utero, even the whole plan is measured and laid out, the whole design, how many bones, how many, just the whole I mean, it's just like Dr. Yamina was saying, to look at the trees in the backyard or, around you. And now to sort of replace the language that we're using with this is divinely determined to be this way. Like this is the direct, I'm looking at, or I'm setting my gaze upon the direct manifestation of this infinite being's measured out knowledge, choice. It just makes it a totally different, intimate sort of gaze of how to interact, just as far as like changing the language, because we're often like, oh, this is the this tree, this is the this seed, and then focus on the names that we've come to name them. But wiping out that sort of the labeling of the different genome or the species or the this or the that, and to say this is I like the words that we're using. So like miqdar, this is a certain limit of a certain form that was particularly measured and particularly decided, and you get to interact with that aspect of it.
Yeah, and what he says at the end, he's talking about the first kind of qadar that we can predict, let's say. I'm using the word very loosely. And we can see how everything is a miracle of power. And he says that is to say, everything that will happen to the tree is as though inscribed in its seed. He's talking about the qadar of the tree being a tree, and which kind of tree. For in regard to their substance, the seeds, truly, I mean, if we look at the physical aspect, they all are made of the same substances. And actually, even those substances that look different, if you go back down to the basic matter as atoms, then you will say they are all atoms. So how come they are all different? One is a tree, one is a flower, one is a vegetable, and we're talking only about this realm. Actually, according to the materialistic vision of or worldview, then what makes a combination of atoms into a human being and one into a tree or a rock or something? It just doesn't make sense. Something doesn't add up. There is something else there. So he's saying, for in regard to their substance, seeds are simple and similar to one another. Materially, they are nothing. Something else is going on there. Of course, the something else looks to the malakut, and that are the angels are executing. How do you say, is that such a word in English?
Yes, executing.
Executing the divine commands of be, and it is the workbench of be. The be is being manifested into this partially physical. Actually, it's not totally physical. It's not only matter, because something is alive there. Something is growing. Something is becoming.
It's always a process of becoming, right?
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
yeah. That's something that
Yeah.
once we go down to that level, it's totally mind-blowing because it's not like, um, when we talk about Genesis, for example, it's like in the beginning, God created the world or the light and it was good. And then da 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 da. So it seems like it was done, like it was one and done. Now it's kind of standing on its own. But when you really do the pondering, and I think like linguistically too, what we see in the Quran is this emphasis on becoming, on always, or like constantly constantly being sustained. So it's not like getting the command be, and then okay, now this like apricot seed is just hanging out on its own. No, every moment that it is in existence, it's getting that continuous command, be, and it's being given meaning, and like its angelic side of existence is always being maintained.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's just
unfolding, let's say.
unfolding. Yeah, I like that too. It's awesome. Okay, so from here, this is what I got. We have two kinds of qadar. First kind, which is what we were talking about here, is having a kind of not guaranteed, but having some sort of confidence in the general rules or order of creation, right? So the balance, regularity, adornment, differentiation, giving a form. I think that that's kind of like the reason that we got those words and we got that emphasis is because this is what it's telling me. When I hold an apricot seed in my hand, I know that it will grow into an apricot tree. Or if I buy fresh herbs from the grocery store and I, bring them home, or I have spring onions and I cut them and put them in water, I know that it's not going to grow into tulips. They're going to keep being onions. So, am I right to say that this is the first kind of qadar? We have, like, this is an expectation that we can have.
Yeah, here though, the emphasis is that it is written. And of course, this is, if it's written, if it can be known, it means it is indicating divine knowledge, which is, remember, a title of Qadar.
Okay, so, right. So, what I'm like, this witnessing that I'm doing in my life with something as quote unquote simple as herbs or plants that I can have in my own kitchen is showing me that, okay, what is in the seed of this is measured. It has a form. It's not growing randomly. It's planned. It's under control. So the fact that I know onions aren't going to turn into tulips is because it's not being handled randomly, or it's not up to chance. Like, this is what I can trust. And then,
And also, did you finish, Ruban?
no, go ahead.
And also, maybe I'm thinking a bit too simply, but this is written like in the earlier part of 20th century, where I think today we actually do think it's written almost like we saw it written, like the DNA, the different studies of the DNA. Really, we don't exactly know how it is written. Like, we did identify the DNA within the seeds, but we don't really exactly, we know very little about how it is written. That each cell will go to here, and the leaf is going to take this shape, and then you'll have this other aspects that are going to come out of the seed. So we don't actually know. One mathematician actually said that there are instruction sets coming out of the DNA, but we don't know how these instruction sets are working because it's very, very sophisticated, that it must be beyond our current mathematical um, uh, understanding right now, because how is it everything is encoded in there, that each aspect is acting according to a plan. So it to me, maybe I'm thinking simple here. He looks like he's inferring a bit more abstractly, because looking at different seeds, apricot seed, and then you have the tomato seed. You look at them in terms of material; they are very similar material, and yet you know that this is tomato seed. Tomato consistently will come out of this kind of seed, and then apricot will come out of the other type of seed. It's not because this is a bigger seed or smaller. It's not about the size or the. It's about what is written inside. So it must be that there are different instructions in each. So he's kind of inferring it, and then we also have a bit more kind of clearer visibility to this fact that every seed has this intricate DNA in it. And what is all of that? As Dr. Yamina was saying, that all of this represents or makes it easier for us to understand that these things are not happening haphazardly, that it's not like you put the seed and somehow it interacts and then the cells go this way and then they go that way. No, it's really clear that the things are running according to a particular plan. So then it relates to the verse quoted in the beginning, that everything is written in a clear record. Not just what is inside the seed is indicating that there is all of this is written somewhere. Not just literally inside the seed, but in the sense that this information, this planning is happening in a realm from which all of this planning is coming forth.
It's governed. It's happening according to a plan. We see only the execution of the plan.
So when I go one step further, then I'm seeing the execution of this plan, and I am getting, or I'm able to witness or infer the qualities of the one executing, or like the one planning, right? So what I mean is, this is what I'm witnessing, and then my conclusion is, okay, these are being measured, they have a form, they're being planned, it must be written, and it's being executed according to a plan. So whoever is behind it has the qualities that allow this being to do all this governance. Now, do you want to expand on that, Estrabla? What you wrote in the chat?
Yeah, so we also see the seed. So there's something in the seed that is already packed in, as he calls it, index. We call it today DNA. We literally, there is a piece of writing in it, and that piece of writing is a plan. That's very clear. We don't exactly know, how is it coded in there, or what is exactly is coded in there. It's very, very sophisticated, but we do have we almost see that there is literally something written in the seed and in the grain. So that's this, and then he moves on to talk about in the following paragraph, how things are taking shape and things are being executed, and that gives us a more a sense of, oh wow, they are really running according to a plan. Sort of this, like it's a connected idea, but I do think that there's also an emphasis here on noticing the seed, that literally we see the DNA in it, something is inscribed in it.
Yeah, it's something we can read, and it's reliable enough, right, that you can do tests on DNA and say, oh, based on the writing in you, based on your index, you are more likely to suffer from heart disease or something. Like this is something that we can calculate and measure. So the writing there is always appearing systematically enough that we are able to have a whole field of science to study it. So there is literal writing in every cell in my body for the whole of my body, which I think is also like crazy. And that, like the system of writing is the same in all living things. It's just the fact that we have this, and it's like going to a library and them having the Dewey Decimal System, right? So it's like, you know that the books are on the shelves based on a system of categorization. And it's going to be like every library that follows this system will have, like, you will be able to navigate it because they all follow the same system. So it's the same with like every single human being, but not just every single human being. I have this index, but an apricot seed also has this index. So even just on that level, higher level, there's this planning that I can witness. Sarah, go ahead.
It's almost as though every cell, I thank you, Isra, and Urbano about like the actual like it is so subhanAllah that every cell, this whole intrigue with the DNA and the genetics and the genome and like looking at this, it felt like as you guys were speaking, like this, I'm so pleased with this halaqah and I'm so grateful. So jazakumullah khair and Dr. Yamina. It's like all of the science, that we've learned up until this point in our secular education, with this emphasis on this encrypted information that is embedded in everything. And then the Qur'an comes to decode this encryption with words like Qadara, taqdir, miqdar, measured, planned, calculated, and uses, this very encoded, like cryptid information that's put in this world, then gives us, and which is why they need to be read together, right? Because people are now getting lost in the DNA and the genetics, literally getting lost. Like I stopped following, but there at one point it was like the God, Nurbana, you know better, but there was an article that was like the God Adam, or I don't know what it was. They couldn't come to a solution. So they were just like, what? There has to be. Um, so subhanAllah, that's just the way that we're now using the Qur'an's guidance to transform the language so that the type one that Dr. Yamina shared that is written or that is made known through this encrypted knowledge of how things have been decided, right? Like Down syndrome, for example, you can become aware when the chromosomes are encrypted in a certain, they are decided, they are measured, they are encoded in a particular way. And so when we use the type one, it's like what Dr. Yamina was saying, right? Like first you focus on how your body is being sustained and taken care of. Your every single request is being granted. That was one aspect. Now we're building on that, right? So when we see that, like in the orange, for example, or the apricot, when we start seeing in these things around us, this is not just an orange that came from an orange. Like this was perfectly measured. I'm touching the direct manifestation of divine, infinite, absolute. The Arabic is better for me because it's just loaded with all of the different words at once. Taqdir, like a measurement. The information was calculated. It was brought into perfect power, and I'm touching it now. I get to look at it. I get to interact with this very divine, unseen beings, real life, here and now, the way he measures things and the way that helps me, going back to if you know how to read yourself, then you can better read the life, universe's happenings. If you can see the sustainer in my body, if I can see the way sustainer takes care of me, I'm more likely to trust the way the sustainer is acting out there. The same thing with this now. It's like if I can see Qadar in the orange, in the way that my eye sees, in the way that this seed has been planted, this apple has been decided, then the unknown that brings anxiety, that's like the type two, what I don't know about the plan that is manifesting. Because I've become so much more acquainted with the way that the measuring is so on point with the things around me, then maybe inshallah Rahman, that'll make us more likely to lean into trusting the unknown because it's just as calculated. It's just as, is it possible? I like how Dr. Mina asked us that question. Is it possible that he's measured, planned, and decided the orange, but he won't do it to a city of believers?
All right, go even, yeah, just doing tafakkur on an orange is so, just fills you with a lot of relief, right? So, and that's what Dr. Amina was saying, doing the reflection on the first kind of qadar is going to help me understand or have trust when it comes to the second kind, which is, okay, when I plant the seed, I can expect to have tomatoes grow. And this is like the order of the universe, and it is being consciously upheld. But I don't know if I'll get to eat the tomatoes or, how much they will grow or this or that. So for that unknown, because I am witnessing and having trust in the first kind, which is that every time I plant a tomato seed, there's order in the universe that is being maintained moment by moment and that I can trust. So the absolute being behind this is the one taking care of everything, right? So the parts I don't know, they don't scare me as much because the parts I know just make me feel security. Like he's not playing games with me. That when I plant tomato seeds, I don't get turnips. So he gains my trust. And so for the parts that I don't know, I'm still relieved because whoever's operating, right? Or not whoever, but the being that's operating is wise, is merciful, is not playing with me, is not mocking me. He's creating with order, calculation, planning, control to make me feel that sense of security. So for the parts I don't know, I can breathe easy and say, even the, you know, like intricacy of a pomegranate is being maintained. So my feelings and my life is also under constant protection and surveillance. from this wise and merciful being. Of course, this is like something I would have to internalize to really feel that sense of security. Okay, so it's 10 p.m. and I'm having a lot of fun, but we do have to end it here, guys. So I think next week we can reread this paragraph and then keep going. I will open it up to Dr. Yamina for any final comments. And if you have heart work for us, or if anyone has suggestions on what we can think about until next week, please share, and then we can finish, inshallah.
Reread what you read for us today, Nurbanu, especially those 2 paragraphs, and reflect on their meaning and apply it around us, and see the miracles of power. Power here is Qudra. Again, the same root as Qadar. You see there the miracles of power. This is an all-encompassing power beyond our imagination. Only the heart can feel the awe. It's not something that we can comprehend or fathom intellectually. And that's the practice. When we learn how to reflect, take notes here, what he's saying, and go and, as Nurbanu was noting at the beginning, reading in parallel. That's what we're learning with this work of Imam Nursi, rahimahullah, is to read the Qur'an in parallel with the universe and vice versa, and how they confirm each other. So we take notes, we go and apply it, look at the seeds around us. We're eating fruits and seeds come out, and look at how we recognize the seeds, the seed of a tangerine, or for instance, an apple, or the fruits that we have right now, and reflect. And as we reflect and we are filled with awe, stay with the awe. Stay with the awe. If you feel like going into sajda, into prostration, go into prostration. That's what we need to, that's how we acknowledge the divine power, the divine miracles all around us. And that's how we can acknowledge our ubudiyah before the rububiyah. That's how we articulate, or our appreciation for everything that is given to us. Actually, even saying this is almost like ridiculous, because everything is given to us, but in the beginning it doesn't feel like that. It feels like something, I exist separately and something is given to me. But the more we nurture this acknowledgement, this appreciation, the more it will get deeper and deeper, until that false I that claims ownership starts by itself, because we're not feeding it, it starts shrinking and letting the ruh, the soul, thrive and be at peace, in joy, even in calamity, in hardship, being at peace and in joy in front of its Rabb, its maker, its the host. But this is an incredibly, amazingly powerful, generous, compassionate, all that we need and we will running after in this world is just here, there, here, now, there, inshallah.
Thank you, Dr. Amina. Okay, so I will send these 2 paragraphs to the group, inshallah, so we can reflect on it this week and share our reflections, please, if you have any and would want us to benefit as well. Okay, so let's stop here, inshallah. And for everyone who came after we did the initial announcement, this Saturday at 1:30 p.m. at Diyanet Center in Maryland, we have a session on living the Qur'an with Dr. Yamina. It is called What is Tasbih? So for anyone who is relatively local, we would love to see you. And again, you can make a day trip out of it. And if you want any more details, it was sent out in the newsletter. You can also go to our Instagram and get details there, or you can shoot us an email or message us, inshallah. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة على رسولنا صلوات.